I've found less luck with hiring VPs and senior level roles when I hire them from other large companies where I'm hiring them at a scaling hyper-growth startup.
Talk to me about the hiring process that you'd like to run when you're leading a company.
We vibe coded a Lovable app in which that person had to, in real time, answer 2 questions, and they couldn't redo them. They didn't know what the questions were until they actually hit the record button.
How do you think about fractional versus full-time within a marketing org?
I will never hire a fractional person. That doesn't work for me.
Background references. Tell me how you think about it.
I've learned now not to make offers until I've back channeled. VP, like 10 people, like minimum. I'm very honest with my teams because I believe in trust and respect as the ultimate way to get people to buy into you and buy into the vision of everything. So I expect my leaders to lead that way too.
Welcome to How I Hire, the podcast where we talk with senior leaders about how they find, vet, attract, and grow go-to-market talent. I'm Andy Mowat, founder of Whispered. Today, I'm joined by Melissa Rosenthal. Melissa is the former CRO at Cheddar, Chief Creative Officer at ClickUp, and other media brands as well, too. Today, Melissa leads Outlever, a platform that helps companies become the voice of their industry. I've been impressed with some of the work they've been doing with clients.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Excited to be chatting about this. I'm very passionate about it, and there's always a lot of lessons learned and a lot to say. So happy to chat.
I'm pumped to both unpack hiring, but also you spend so much time on the brand and social side that I think there'll be some fun through lines there as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe diving in, like you've spoken about reinvention and rapid career growth as central to your trajectory. When you're hiring somebody, how do you determine if somebody is able to do that reinvention and scale at a rapid rate? I think it's hard to sometimes tell from just the resume or just the background.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that you can take from kind of someone's trajectory and like where they started and where they've ended up, right?
Yeah.
Like I my own background, I think when I look at myself, which is always a good barometer to like kind of look at yourself when you're comparing, especially when you're trying to hire in roles that you've either been in or have been adjacent to. Like I went from, head of global creative at BuzzFeed to the CRO at a company, right? So I transitioned myself and reinvented myself completely from a creative to a sales head, right? And then back to a creative person to a brand person. So like for me, like I like to see, and you don't typically see this, right? But I do like to see people that have kind of taken different paths, like non-linear paths in their career. I think it really makes them very well-rounded. Like my goal when I took on a sales role was I had the opportunity. I was helping found the company, so it was like, where are you best suited? And I actually was like, I actually want to run all of sales. I want to be the CRO. And the reason I decided to do that was because I felt that in a brand and marketing role, I never would have been as well-rounded as I could be in my future if I didn't take that opportunity. And it was the one opportunity where I wouldn't have needed the background because I had the credentials and I had the belief system within, John, who founded it, to be able to take that with no questions asked, right? And I had to prove myself, of course, but and I think that when I see that in someone else where it's like, yeah, and I completely did a 180 and then I went into this because I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. That's when I really see that someone is completely available and open to personal professional growth and transformation and being able to really like embrace, new roles, new things, new technology. It's a good signal for me.
SD, are there any profile? I love those like different paths, nonlinear. I think a lot of high-flying companies now like that founder that didn't work out, right? Because you've got the hustle, but you're also probably fairly communicative at the executive level. Are there any like paths or profiles that you found you enjoy? The other one that I always enjoy is the been at big, seen greatness, but then like
went back down.
Got a little bit of humility as well too.
Yeah, I mean, I always like people that have been at big, like it's actually very important. I've had this is a weird thing to say, but I've found less luck with hiring VPs and senior level roles when I hire them, not 100%, but when I hire them from other large companies where I'm hiring them at a scaling hyper-growth startup. Even if we operate at like we were at whatever, 200 billion in revenue and growing really fast and had big aspirations and we're going after enterprises. It did not translate to those folks that had 10, 15 years experience at giant companies like a ServiceNow or, like other big organizations. So the profile I definitely like is like if someone has been at that organization for a few years or had been up at like, a massive enterprise company, but then went to a startup again. I think the operational skill set and acumen and understanding of pace and growth at those types of companies is vastly different. So if you see both, like kind of the duality of like they've understood the big corporate where we want to be, but then they also understand the where we operate at mindset. Yeah, it's a good profile. Like 100%, I've had really, really good success with people that have like decided that they've gone where they could go within a big organization and wanted to, go to a Series B, Series C startup. It's always a good barometer.
I love that. How do you think about like designing a VP or C-level role? Like what are the foundations that it takes to make great hires on that side? Before you look at them, what do you need to look at yourself about?
I mean, you have to understand what's needed in the role, right? Like VPs across different companies operate in very different ways. Some are just like managers, unfortunately, and like they are very hands off and like they want to be involved in like high level decisions, but they don't want to be in the weeds of what, the companies have been doing. And, to the level set this entire conversation, I've never been at a company where the VPs and the C-level folks are not on the ground with everyone else and like doing the actual work. So, in designing those roles, like that was the biggest part. We've worked with like amazing, like Diversa, right? And amazing talent agencies that have sent talent our way. And in designing those roles and working with them, we made it pretty clear that like this person has to be a player coach, mentality, and has to be on the ground, doing the work, understanding, reporting back, but not just asking their direct reports for like reports on how something's doing. They understand why they're doing it and how it ladders back to the larger goals of the organization. And then that person can run it. They trust their reports. They give freedom, and they don't I don't really like micromanagers, but they give the freedom to be able to do that. They set the pace, they set the tone, they set the architecture and the direction for what needs to be done. And then they're working alongside on the ground, making sure that that's happening. Like that's a very important skill set. And when I ask, like when we design those roles and when I ask the interview questions, it's very much like, what was the biggest project you've ever taken on and what was your role in it? Because also a really good indicator that person is not the right person when they take credit for the entire thing that they've pulled off, right? Like that takes an army of people if it's the biggest project you've ever done and you're the center and you're the hero of it. It gives a pretty good indication that like that's not the right person, because we need people that are team players and understand that like there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and also kind of says something about their ego too.
I like that a lot. Yeah, it's always those, like, we all have those questions that we ask that can teach us a lot of different things. And then if you ask the same question over and over again, it gives you pattern recognition to know what a good answer and a bad answer is. I think the concept of player coach, even at the executive level, is just more and more prevalent, right? Like you hear these billion-dollar companies where I was listening to folks at Ramp the other day saying, like, we don't need people that are going to manage. We need people that are going to get their hands dirty. Other than like the questions you've got, like how else do you assess that, right? Like that's it. And we were talking before we hopped on of talent that doesn't work out. So I'd be curious, like, how do you assess this question, and then what are some of the reasons?
I think, yeah.
It doesn't work?
I mean, it's that question that I just stated, like what was your role in the largest thing that you've ever pulled off, is really telling, because like it tells you, like this is like a 15-minute answer. Like I want to go in depth about like what you actually did, who was on the team, what they did, what parts they played. It also shows you a lot about their knowledge of that entire process, right? Like if they're able to architect out for you exactly what happened, what went well, what went wrong, and be fluid about it and be honest about that. That's a pretty good feeling coming out of that, understanding that they know exactly what went on and how they architected that and what role they played and what role everyone else played. So I would say it's a pretty solid indicator. The other thing that like is a more like adjacent question, but I really like it, that it just tells me a lot about this person, how they think, how they deal with tough challenges, personally, professionally, is what is the hardest thing you've ever gone through? And, could be personal, could be professional. And like, how did you come out of that on the other side? And it tells me a lot about resilience. It tells me a lot about ability to fight through things, like their growth, like how they, like who they want to be and what they aspire to be and what's meaningful to them. It just like, I like the questions that open up a world of like, this person's going to bare their soul and heart to you, kind of. high EQ is really important to me. Like I need to hire people that have high EQ. I think like, there's just certain roles that I haven't hired for, like CFO, and like that person maybe doesn't need high EQ, or, uh, head of like legal, like those people maybe less. So head of
I'll tell
HR
you,
kind of EQ. Like,
I'd tell you, legal does not. I've known plenty of people that are brilliant legal minds, but not high EQ. I feel like CFO does because you've got to manage so many competing
that's true.
budget priorities.
Especially now. But yeah, I think the roles that I've hired for, which have mainly been in go-to-market, marketing, brand growth, all like required high EQ from my perspective and for those roles.
I like that. One other thing, when you ask your question around the biggest project and your role in it, you're also subtly feeding, which we'll talk about later, the back channels, right? Like, oh, your role was
Yeah,
this. Okay,
tell me who you worked with.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Who led it? Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. So and so said they worked with you on this project. How did they do? And this is the role.
precisely.
This is the role that
And you
said they had. Is that the role they
yeah,
actually had? Right.
exactly. Yeah, it gives you a lot of kind of ammo to go into those back channels, actually having a perspective and a narrative that you're trying to back up. So, yeah, absolutely.
Given you spent a lot of your career in the marketing side, and marketing is oftentimes one of the areas with the most fractional in it, what is your take on, as you're like maybe onboarding or leading a team, like how do you think about fractional versus full-time within a marketing org?
I will never hire a fractional person. That doesn't work for me.
Let's
Um,
tell me more on this one. I've heard other people go the opposite way on this one. I
oh,
tend to
interesting.
I tend to think that there's certain core skill sets that I'm never going to outsource, and there's others that I do. But like, tell me maybe always what burns you on fractional, because you must have or how do you think about that?
I mean, the roles in the companies I've been at, right? They're so high pressure, so high growth. Like they are. I can't, like, I'm barely sleeping in these roles, right? Like this is my commitment, and like I consider, like I look at my own career as like sprints, where I do sprints for a certain period of time within roles that I'm in, and then I take a rest, and then I do it again, right? Like that's how I work and how I operate. But during those sprints, I'm giving everything and all of my time and all of my energy and all of my mental effort to those roles. Now, advisory, in terms of hiring an agency or outsourcing a person, sure, happy to do that. That works really well when you're trying to fill in gaps. But like fractional VP of growth,
Okay,
fractional,
I'm with you. Yeah, there's
yeah,
so many
I can't.
words.
That
Fractional, yeah.
yeah, for sure. I just wanted to kind of have that distinction, because it's very important that I have like that person's 100% time and attention on what we're doing and their commitment to our end goal. Like I just find that fractional is like there's not enough. Like they're sort of incentivized, but there's not like that. They're not all in. And I need people that are all in.
Here's the only, and so I've run growth marketing at two unicorns. I've kind of picked it up as like battlefield, like crap, there's nobody doing it. And so I've run it. Here, I guess would be my take is I oftentimes see like marketing is probably the hardest to lead because there's, in sales, you have 100 people doing the same thing. But in marketing, you'll have
Yeah.
40 people all doing something different, and it's hard to kind of get them and lead them. And so I guess I've seen areas where design, if you've got a really partnered design, you can sometimes outsource once you get the overall design aesthetic. But increasingly, AI is changing that. And then paid slash SCM teams, sometimes you can just bring in, I see sometimes the paid and SC, like that side of the demand gen can get fairly stale and institutionalized in a company. And so bringing in like creative thinking and moving faster is areas where at least I personally have done it. But how do you think about like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So design has always been so close to the founder, CEO, that impossible to outsource any part of that unless we have like very solid design leadership at the top. Like that was never a thing ever. So yeah, I can't say that like I've had experience there, because it was just like a non-negotiable. That person basically has to learn to have a second brain like the CEO and like the founder, and be a mouthpiece and basically a second brain for them. And you can't do that with like a fractional person or an outsourced person. Can you hire outsourced contractors once you have that person with that institutional knowledge of how the design frameworks work? Yeah, I do believe that, but you need to have that core foundation for it to work. On the growth side, this is going to be super controversial. I believe it's like there's a tenure. that exists within that role, and then you need to cycle through to the next person. And I think you can probably get the most out of them for 2 years, and then you need to move on. And there's only a pool, there's a finite pool of people that have seen those levels of growth and that have scaled growth from, 100 million to 500 million, or from 0 to 50. And you go to the next like fractional, step in that once you've kind of exhausted the capability and abilities of the person that you currently have. Like, that is just the reality. Finding someone that can scale growth from 0 to 500 million is probably, that's not really realistic. So while like I hear the like whole outsourcing thing, you bringing in people as advisory and in that role, like during that time period of like transition, is great. Like, I think that's very helpful. I find that to be very beneficial, and I've had a lot of luck there. But I find that like it's usually time to move on to the next candidate, unfortunately, like at certain stages of growth. Like and it I think it's just a fact. I don't know if people that don't admit that, like I don't know if I believe them.
I think you're, especially in marketing too, I don't disagree with you. I think it's there's stages, but then there's also just like new ideas, right? Like, I think sometimes people, they find themselves in a rut and they're running the same playbook, or if you can't tell me what I always say, like, if I can't see that like vision for what I'm doing and how to, if I can't see how to inflect the curve, then I may not be the right person here anymore, right? So sometimes you just run your playbook and you're like, I've seen this before in every GTM function where people are like, they don't have a vision anymore.
Yeah, and what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying that person in that role actually might be really good at coming up with ideas and being creative, but they may not be the person to actually execute at that level anymore. So giving them a role around it in which they can thrive and work alongside that growth leader can also work. I've seen that too. It's just like they're still like in it. They're still coming actually up with really fresh ideas. It's just not. They haven't seen enough to be able to like actually scale it. So I think it might be like kind of a hybrid of finding someone that can mentor them too, that they can work alongside and partner with.
I like it. Given that you guys are in some cases could fall into the bucket of fractional / outsource / leverage beyond your core thing, how do you figure, and I normally don't go to the plug, but here I think it's actually very fun. Like, how do you plug into these companies you work for?
So interesting. That's a really good question. How do we plug in? It's tough because we're kind of this kaleidoscope of things of like we were building them an owned media channel effectively. And there's a lot of like kind of plugs into things where we're helping or replacing parts of that. So it's not like fractional though. It's like, can we give legs to things that you're already doing? Can we bring new perspectives to it? But like, it's an amplification machine plus a new way of thinking. So doesn't fall neatly into like what kind of like, it's not replacing anything. It's building something new from scratch. It's a completely new thing that most people have never done or heard of before. So yeah, I don't know. It's not a perfect like, perfect puzzle piece, and not like what it actually replaces in the hiring spectrum. Like realistically, like it could replace a lot of individual contributor roles. Absolutely. So
if I understand correctly, you're kind of replacing parts of the content team, replacing it or helping you achieve what's in their minds, and
100%. Yeah, like I mean, there was a company that wanted to work with us, and they're like, "Hey, we were actually thinking about building this thing out ourselves. What you're doing now?" And they're like, "But we allocated a $5 million budget to it. Can we do it for less?" And we were like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, our entire product is built around making this an efficient motion where like we can do it really, efficiently at scale, and it costs like nowhere near $5 million a year." So there are companies that are thinking this way that just can't staff it or do it internally. It's too cost prohibitive, or they were planning on spending $5 million and they'd rather not.
That makes total sense. Maybe talk a little bit about how you think about hiring process. We've touched on little bits of it, like your favorite interview, how you do that. But like, talk to me about the hiring process that you'd like to run when you're leading a company.
Yeah. So I mean, the funny thing about like let's just say what we're doing now is that I don't have any of that like that buffer between like myself and like candidates. So we like hiring has been really hard as a founder. Like I did not anticipate. I thought we were just going to land great people immediately. And oh my God, we went through some painful stuff. Like most people did not work out. I'll put it that way. We've made hires. Most of them didn't work out. the amount of time I've spent on interviews, even if the resume looked good, even if it sounded good and it was like a total disaster. Usually we haven't moved to the second interview, but it's just a ton of time wasted. We actually did something really amazing that worked perfectly, which helped us land the person that introduced us for this podcast and a few other folks. And what that was is we vibe coded a Lovable app in which that person had to, in real time, answer 2 questions, and they couldn't redo them, and they didn't know what the questions were until they actually hit the record button. So they were like, most people, it was like, we had over 1,000 submissions, and it was 99% of those people did not even answer the questions. I think we had 20 people answer the questions, and 10 of those people were solid, were amazing. And we knew that, like, off the bat, they had really unique perspectives. They were able to answer in real time. They didn't have the ability to do research. They had to do it off the cuff. We could tell a lot about their personality from how they came through. And we made 3 hires out of that batch, out of, the 10 people that came through. So it was a good kind of like, how do we figure this out? I can't afford Diversif right now. So how are we going to hire?
Okay, talk to me more about this. So was this were you in the process of live coding a Lovable app anyway, and you just had them plug into it? Or you literally were like, I need you to hard code this thing or make up anything and code anything?
Yeah, we spent 2 days doing it, and we were just like at a loss. Like, it was one of those like come to Jesus moments where me and my co-founder were like, how do we hire? Like, this is becoming impossible. We need a really unique skill set, and we need people that are able to grow and have managed and can do X, Y, and Z. And it was just like, there was no perfect profile for that person. So we didn't even know how to do that. So we're like, well, these are the 2 questions that we find to be the most telling. And we can't have them be able to do prior research on it. And it has to be natural, and we have to really understand a lot about them. So the vibe coding process was 2 days where we built a video app within Lovable, and we made it sure that it had the parameters where they couldn't look at the question before.
Okay. So you basically built a version of like video ask, Typeform's video ask thing, right?
Yeah. And but the problem was with all of the other products out there, we didn't want to build this ourselves. We looked around, and there was nothing that didn't enable the question before the interview. Like, they could all see it, and they were like, you couldn't customize that. And that was like the key thing for us. We're like, we can't have these people be able to do research on this question. They have to be able to ask it, like, do it on the fly. And there were a couple of other like parameters that we needed to be able to figure out. There's a few other things that there's nothing else in the market that allowed us to do that. So we built it ourselves.
Wow. Okay. So I understand you didn't have this wonderful person that we met through vibe code an app for you. You vibe coded an app to do your interviewing process.
To find her. Yeah, exactly. To find her and a few other people, we vibe coded a tool, which was like, honestly, it was like, is the best thing is the best thing we did. We spent 2 days on it, and it found us,
Okay, so tell me more about like, if I come to this app, what does it do? I'm fascinated by this. Like, anytime.
I can send it to you after this interview. So you come to it, and it said, okay, you're going to be asked 2 questions. You're not going to be able to see those questions before you hit this. There are 2 very specific prompts where it's like, if you do want to repeat it, you can do that, but there are instructions on how to do that. If no one reads instructions, which is also very telling. So, there are a couple of instructions, and if you follow them, if you don't nail it the first time, you're able to redo it, but no one read those instructions. So it's very like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And once you hit record, the question will flash up on the screen, and you will need to answer that question. And there were 2 questions, and that was it.
I love it. So what was the total time it took people to do?
If they did it, like, if they answered the questions like in depth, I'd probably less than 10 minutes, like
That's awesome.
8 minutes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, but I told you 1,000 people clicked in and submitted, and they were blank videos. It was like them going, and then exiting out, because they read the question and they're like, I don't know how to answer this. So that, it weeds a lot of them out. And we were able to, and we captured, we used like RB2B to match the data between who was actually filling out the interview, so that we could look at the profiles of the people that were doing it. And the people that you would think that would like really nail this, like, and would be the perfect people on paper, again, people that I would have spent a lot of time with, probably couldn't answer these 2 questions that were, really crucial and like non-negotiables for this role.
So first off, I completely agree with you that nobody reads instructions. Whispered has confidential insights on like 7,000 companies, and we give access to people, and we ask them, please review our privacy policy on the next page and tell us, and and we care deeply about the fact that you review it. And then we said like, okay, once you've reviewed it, go answer the question. And we asked, what was the date of the privacy policy? You can go back to it. And what was one thing that it said? And this one guy yesterday was like, treat information carefully, and made up a random fucking date, right? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, you do not get access to our data if you don't value it. And I think that fundamental insight of nobody reads instructions was very powerful. This is really neat. I love people.
I'll also send that to you after, so you can just check it out yourself.
I love it. I won't share the questions that get asked because that's no fun.
You'll be using it again. Yeah, for sure.
I might build my own. I've always thought about like video ask from Typeform could be that, right? Which is you just put here's the prompt. Now here's a video of you having the chance to do it, or the prompt is there right when you record the video. So I feel like you could have hacked it with then. What specifically you built it because you didn't want people to see the questions in advance. You wanted to control the timing that they had to think about it as well too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And we wanted them to be able to go back and redo it in a very specific way if they read those instructions. And I don't know if we looked at like 10 different platforms to be able to do this. We didn't want to build this we could have been doing other stuff, but it was just really important that we had in that very specific order. And there was no product in the market that did exactly that.
I love it. Okay, we talked before we recorded background references. Tell me how you think about it.
Yeah, back channeling is really important. I've learned now not to make offers until I've back channeled, but I used to do it. But yeah, I used to be like, I would feel so confident about people. And then I'd be like, well, I'm going to make them the offer. And then if the back channel comes out, I'll rescind it. And like, it turns out that if you start to do enough back channels, especially at very senior roles, like sometimes it kind of falls apart. So no, I've changed my process where there's no offer until the back channel is complete. How I go about it, I try to find people that have, I try to back channel about 10 people, depending upon the seniority of the role. VP, 10 people, minimum. And it's a mix of the 5 people that have worked adjacent to them, 2 that have worked above them, and then 2 that have kind of worked around them or worked with them in adjacent roles to describe from an outside perspective, as someone that worked adjacent to this person, how would you describe them? How are they viewed within the company? I like the peripherals a lot. I like the optics of what that person stood for within an organization. I find that to be kind of really telling and really important and very valuable. And then obviously a lot of people that worked with them, a lot of people that worked for them is that's certainly very important. Many different companies across different companies, but I find that to be the most telling thing. I think that usually the people that they reported into, I don't know, it's kind of tricky like that. I find more value in many of the other back channels versus the person that they reported directly into.
I like that. Somebody once told me there are people that'll be two-faced. Upwards to their bosses, they'll be one way, and downward and horizontal, they'll be different. So I deeply believe in getting both, because I found those people and I'm like, ooh, I don't like, it's
I've gotten the people that manage up so well, right? And then the minute that you start to talk to a subset of people that have worked for them, and they are a completely different person to their reports, and that doesn't obviously sit well with me. So yeah, that's super. I don't want someone that can just play politics. That's not what we look for, and that's not a leader in my opinion. And sometimes that's important, but they have to also be a good manager and a good leader downward.
I like that. Do you ask or tell people that you are doing back channels, or do you just do them?
I say, usually in the final, I say, we're really excited about you. We're high conviction, and as you can imagine, we just want to make sure that we can back up the conviction that we have. And I think there's a lot, there's a silence that I don't say anymore. And I'm sure that they assume that we are doing back channels on them. And if they have any challenge with that, I'm reaching out to such a mixed subset of people that they would never, ever know. And I'm doing deep back channels, both if I'm working with a recruiting firm like Diversa, I'm saying, find me 5 people. And then I'm doing 5 people on my own. So that I'm getting the Diversa folks they know their own back channels. They have really good inroads with people. And then I can find my own based on kind of the information that they've told me on the interviews, specifically what you mentioned on that large project. I try to get names. Oh, and who was that? Oh, and what company was that at? And I can usually find some folks via intros if I can't find them directly. The one thing I won't do, obviously, is back channel them at a company that they're currently at. that's I there's no way to do that professionally, and I would never want to put, if it didn't work out between us and them, I would never want to put their current role at risk. So
Do you ever use VC talent partners? They all have massive databases of back channels as well too.
yeah, VCs and the recruiting agencies. That was the other piece.
I love it.
Yeah, they've always been super helpful, and like I think if they're going to help anywhere, they're really good at that. They have a really, to your point, they have a good Rolodex.
Shifting gears, you've obviously been like one of the people that's played the most with social brand and all that. I'm curious, how does that come into hiring, right? So maybe an example, when I got hired at Carta, the COO was like, people love you, but there's one question. You're like too out there on social. And I'm like, okay, I was just coming off of being a CEO of a company, right? And it's like,
yeah. Everything is
yeah.
Yep.
And so, but I'm curious, like, do you look for people that have social presences, don't have social presences? Do you make judgments on that? Especially like, because some of those are really interesting of like, how do you guide people to be social, like out there or not when they're interviewing?
So at every company I've been at, when like LinkedIn was a thing, and I started using it 13 years ago, like posting regularly. So like kind of OG. And I've been a huge believer in it before. Like it was, I guess, cool to be on it and cool to be doing thought leadership every day. But at every company I've been at since, I've created thought leadership programs and media training programs so that those people can be thought leaders and can be, I think there's an enormous value in creating a network effect as people as channels and people as the voice of your company, right?
Yeah.
So I really like it when they're out there and when they're vocal on LinkedIn. Obviously there's a line. I think, the way that I treat LinkedIn is like, it's my CNBC. What would I not say on CNBC if I was going on CNBC Live, right? And I kind of expect the same thing. There's definitely a boundary. Like this person can't be just like screaming their political beliefs from the rooftop. Like that's probably not like the best use. But if you're using it as a business platform, I think that's really strong. So I think there's definitely a line, but I really do like the people that have built their own brand. I've had great opportunity has come my way because of the personal brand I've built. So how could I expect anything different from the people I'm looking to hire?
I couldn't agree more. We had that same media training at two companies I was at, but one of them, it was like, here is the formulaic LinkedIn post. And I'm just like, no, I'm gonna write the way I feel. I'm gonna write.
Yeah. And obviously I hear the founder thing because I'm writing now from like the mouth of myself and from like what I believe every single day. And I can get up and say whatever I want, and we're self-funded. So I don't have investors and I don't have anyone to worry about outside of like, how should I treat this platform professionally? And what am I okay portraying myself as and saying? But I think like, there's definitely, it's definitely all beneficial.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love people to create their social presences. I always say to people like, listen, writing, there's social media and then there's writing, and writing can open up a ton, right? Like there's, I've got so many people have worked for me. I'm like, if you have a safe space with your boss, like it's okay to publish and do stuff. And like, I want you to write that article, and you send me a Google Doc and give it feedback, and it'll open up your career in ways you don't even read.
Also, like a part of our product enables thought leadership. So it would be right now, it would be pretty like contradictory to be like, I don't believe in that. So
yeah, the only reason I'm talking to you is because I write a lot. Gary found me and she found you, and then we're here. Okay, you said on the prep of like, there are reasons people don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't candidates work out?
They're not honest. They're not transparent. They're portraying a version of themselves that isn't real when times come to actually doing work and actually like stepping into it. Like there's an expectation, and I've always set expectations very clearly. Like there's no. I found that sugarcoating anything doesn't do anyone any good. So it's always, there's work-life imbalance. Usually there's a line. It's an imbalance. It's more work than life. And you have to be the type of person that wants an environment like that. There's a lot of really great things that come from that because we believe in big things here. And there's professional and personal growth that comes with that. And you'll be rewarded for that. But you have to be all in. And if that's not aligned, then it would make sense for both of us to kind of move on. And I always say that like so clearly, and the people will say yes, and then it's not the case. And it's, that's a big thing, right? Like at a hypergrowth startup, it's like you're all in or you're not all in. There's no way around it. Like it doesn't work if you're not. And there's no place to hide either, because the entire company and the culture that we've hired around, is that type of person. They're all in, we're all in it together, and you stick out like a sore thumb if you're not a part of that. The other parts are the people that, I think I've gotten much better with the way I back channel and the understanding of, the person that can manage up versus the person that can manage down. The people that are just rotten leaders, their teammates can't work with them. They treat them poorly. They are not willing to do the work themselves, and it's optics. There's a bad sign when people are on an interview and they take a phone call from their car. Like, I don't know, there's something about that. But like, there was someone I once hired that was always in the car. And I was like, I don't know, when are you working? Like it was kind of just like, I don't know, something doesn't seem right here. And I don't know, it always kind of felt like that person was not really doing the work themselves. There's no real way to, like, there's kind of a way to fully prove it, but like, it didn't seem like they were actually doing this work. It seems like they were kind of outsourcing it. And yeah, obviously, like when there's no trust there, if that's the way that you feel, usually I find that your gut and your intuition is usually correct. I've had so many people that have not worked out. Like, I think more than have worked out. I think that's unfortunate. And I think I'm such like I look for myself and people, and not I want a carbon copy of myself, but I want someone that is really like in love with work and in love with like this as a part of their life. And like there's things that go along with that. And the way that I lead like as a player coach, as an empathetic leader, as someone that is very honest and very truthful. Of course, I can like gatekeep things when it's necessary for politics or for whatever reason, but I'm very honest with my teams because I believe in trust and respect as the ultimate way to get people to buy into you and buy into the vision of everything. So I expect my leaders to lead that way too. It's like kind of a non-negotiable. And also I'm able to lead them when they're able to lead like that. Yeah.
I love it. The all in, I think I want somebody all in mentally, but I don't need somebody all in time wise, right? Like because I two things. One is I've heard a lot of these 996 founders, and I talk to them, and as they get bigger, they realize they can't get the talent that actually is like the smart people. But I remember at one company, one of my managers had hired somebody, and you always meet him after, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to meet this person during the process for some reason. And I asked the person that was hired, like, why are you excited? And they're like, I'm excited that I can go home at 5 every day. And I just don't have to think about work until Monday. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
I do not care about the time in the office. But I deeply care that this is not a walk out the door on Friday afternoon and I don't hear from you until Monday morning, right? Like,
or you're not checking anything. Like there's like checking out is not like, that's not a reality of like, so I used to also think like, look at the state of the industry now, right? Like that used to be you're a startup. That's sort of the expectation. That's like the expectation up the line now. Like people don't want middle managers. They don't want people that are checking out. They want people that are like engaged with work. And I think we're kind of going through a giant reset where a lot of the companies are doing away with the people that are not engaged. Like, those are being targeted in the layoffs.
Oh, that's what we built the software for, Culture Amp, for 4 years, was the employee engagement. We didn't turn it against them. It was more to listen to them. But I think that now with AI, you can monitor like how often people are checking in. You could say like, show me the people that have not thought about work after 5 for the last 2 months, right? And you'd be like, interesting. Like those people might be top on a layoff.
I also like the interesting. I'm sure like at larger companies, it's harder to have that view right across the board. But I like as a leader at every company I've been at, like I know that, like I know that at the back of my hand. Like I don't need software to tell me that. I have a pulse on every single person, on their morale, on how they're feeling, on like what's going on have they dropped off? Have they started to work harder? Are they kind of just mailing it in? Or like also there's like, I don't know, there's pattern recognition. There's performative things that people start to do to make it look like they're working when they're not working. You just pick up on things.
I love it. Yeah, we'll all watch the movie Office Space again. Okay, our traditional closing question, which is on the positive side. Who was the best hire you ever made and why?
Oh, wow. Okay, one of the best hires I've ever made. I hired her. So I worked adjacent to her at BuzzFeed, and then she was my VP of sales at Cheddar. Her name's Nicole, and she is just like, she's a partner of ours now at Outlever, which is cool. So I get to work with her again, she's our customer this time. But yeah, I mean, like ambitious, motivated, like there's a fire. She gets stuff done. She doesn't take no for an answer. She is aggressive in a good way. Needed to learn like management and needed to learn like how to like rally people, but showed all of the good signs of being able to be shaped and molded into this like amazing like leader and salesperson and like VP. So yeah, I took a bet on her, and I mean, like unbelievable, like one of the best talents. The other person I would say is a great hire was he went on to do some pretty cool things. His name's Gabe, and I hired him at BuzzFeed, and he was working at a tobacco factory and like selling tobacco and to like large manufacturers, and
He was literally giving them a buzz.
he was giving them a buzz. He was, I was like, okay, so what do you do during the weekends? Like, what do you do at night? And he goes, oh, I code sites and create viral things that go viral. And here, check out some of my projects. And I was like, well, you are obviously very special. Like, this is where you're spending all of your time. Like, this is what you're very gifted. So I hired him. He's insanely creative. Obviously, like, did a lot. Almost like was honestly too creative and too far ahead for even the position that I hired him for. So like, it was great to have him. And then he went to go start a very viral company called Mischief, which is its own very...
Yeah. I listened to the podcasts on it. Oh, wow. Okay, that guy, that's very impressive. Yes.
Yeah. So, right, like I saw this something in him, and I was like, this is a special person. Like, whether or not he fits the role or he outgrows it, which like he would, like for sure. Yeah, I was lucky to be able to work, like have that person work on my team.
I think I heard the podcast with him. I think it was him at the Invest Like the Best, Patrick O'Shaughnessy, great podcast. And so I heard all about Mischief and the story, and that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was I love the conversation. We had never met in person, but this was like, I feel like I now know you deeply and excited to keep the convo going.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.